I was under the impression my friend was a trans woman the majority of our friendship. Today I finally got the story straight. A little backstory: I moved to a different state 2 years ago for work and didn't know anyone. Over time I met a good group of people who I hang out with on a weekly basis. This was a pretty well-established group and I fortunately was accepted into their ranks. Some of these people have known each other since they were in high school, so they all know each other very well. Despite this, I have never felt excluded or left out and really do love these guys. There are a few people in this group that are a part of the LGBTQ+ community in some way, one of these people being Jane. I want to make it clear that I support the LGBT community. I couldn't care less what people identify as, and even though I am not a part of it, I respect everyone's identity. Jane is someone who is very secure in their identity, and has no problem openly talking about her sexuality. One day while we were all out at a bar, Jane and some of our other friends were talking about their dating history and preferences. Jane brought up how she has been with both men and women and doesn't care about the gender of her partners. That's when a different friend, who is also LGBT, intervened and said something like, "Exactly what I expect a trans woman to say." Jane didn't deny the trans comment, just gave a little wink and continued with the conversation. Because I was still fairly new to the group at this time, I took this comment at face value and just thought, I guess Jane's trans, and moved on. I didn't want to pry considering I wasn't that close with Jane yet. It kinda remained just a thought in the back of my mind and nothing really serious. As the months went by, Jane never mentioned their trans identity again, and no one in the group ever said anything about it, so I assumed it was just something Jane doesn't like to bring up. By this point, I had been friends with this group for a little over a year now and was significantly closer with everyone, including Jane. Jane's in the process of moving out of her current apartment into a much nicer one. Way to go, Jane. And yesterday, I was helping her move some stuff because I own a truck, and I was more than happy to help her. While bringing things into her new apartment, I noticed what seemed like an old family photo from Jane's childhood. There was an older man and woman who I assumed were her parents, a young girl, and a young boy. I turned to Jane and said, "I didn't know you had a sister," with all the confidence and curiosity in the world. That's when Jane made a face and said, "I don't," and walked over to where I was, where she saw the photo I was looking at. She pointed at the little kids in the photo and said, "That's me with my brother." I must have looked like a lost child or something, because when she looked back up at me she asked what was wrong, and I said, "So you're the girl here?" "Yeah." "And that boy is your brother?" "Yeah." By this point, I was really confused because Jane couldn't have been older than 5 in this photo but still looked like a little girl. So I finally asked, "Sorry if this is too personal, but what age did you transition?" That's when Jane now wore a confused look on her face and said, "What are you talking about?" At this point I was genuinely curious, still not understanding what was really happening, so I said, "What do you mean, what am I talking about? I know it's none of my business, but you just look super young here. How old were you when you transitioned?" Then Jane just smiled and said, "Rilo, do you think I'm trans?" I answered with a very unconfident, "Yes." Then Jane asked why I thought that. Then I told her the story about the comment our friend made at the bar. It had been months since that specific hangout, and how she didn't deny it, and how no one ever brought it up again, so I didn't want to. At this point, Jane was on the ground dying of laughter and I felt so embarrassed. Luckily she didn't take offense and thought it was hilarious, even immediately calling one of our other friends to let her know I thought Jane was trans for the majority of our friendship. So moral of the story, gender is a spectrum and don't take gender jokes at face value. And if you're ever confused about someone's gender, just ask, it'll save you a lot of embarrassment.